Our first order of business is a Green Themes presentation from Michigan Energy Options. This evening we have Scott Currett to give us a presentation. Welcome, thanks for coming. The floor is yours.
Thank the Commission for having us, for asking me to speak. I'm going to talk about a topic, sustainable design. A lot of times in construction, you see a lot of waste on job sites and things like that, so we're going to try to address some of those problems in this presentation. Building smarter. The 4 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, and regenerate, and we'll talk about those things. Reduce. Homes have doubled in size since the 1950s, so now you see a lot of McMansions, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. And a lot of times there's 1,500 to 2,000 square feet that a family won't even touch. They actually just have to maintain it and condition that space.
On your microphone there?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can get closer to that, that'd be super for us. Thank you.
Okay, so implementing different design techniques, whether it's framing techniques or how we put a house together or buildings together, is a key strategy on how we can reduce waste on our job sites and in our environment, so things don't end up in a landfill, they end up being reused. Selecting more efficient HVAC equipment, such as heating systems, cooling system, boiler systems that we can implement into our homes is the best way, the strategy to do it. If you look at the slide there, you'll see panels that are just laid out. Those are referred to as SIP panels, structurally insulated panels. So these are one of the techniques that we can use here in the state of Michigan, because we have 4 manufacturers of SIP panels, so you can not only get a good bid on your proposals for your house or your building, but you'll also get the material doesn't have to travel as far versus getting lumber from Canada or from other states. And they're also, so there were studies done where they took 2x6 construction and then took SIP panel construction, so you pack the cavity in a 2x6 construction versus the SIP panel construction, and the SIP panel construction was still 40% more efficient in reducing energy costs. So this is just one of the techniques to reduce. And you can also reduce the amount of electricity that you use in your home with your targeting your lighting, your systems. Make sure your HVAC systems, your heating and cooling systems are having tune-ups done every 2 years, which those are rebatable items through your utility company, whether it be consumers or Board of Water and Light. So reuse, it's the second R. Here in Lansing, we have one of the best construction projects that ever took place in the world back in 2007. It was a triple platinum LEED project, and that was put on by Chrisman, and it was done with the Mutual building in Lansing that was constructed in 1928. So what they did is they reused 90% of the structure, the exterior structure, and in that process, this is what they came up with. 92% of the existing walls, and they recycled 77% of the materials that was removed from the building, which is pretty phenomenal in looking at it. And so one of the most sustainable buildings is one that's already existing. Our office, Michigan Energy Options, was a home that was built in 1929, and it's a LEED Platinum building. It was actually moved from a couple blocks away and put it on the existing site. So using a building that's already existing is very sustainable. Recycle. Up to 75% of the waste material of a residential remodel can be recycled, whether it be, and so this is just an example. Some of the asphalt that you remove from a site you can reuse. Some of the concrete that you remove can be recycled and reused. A lot of times people, when they have, they want to replace their driveway, they can't necessarily afford to pay for new concrete, or they don't have concrete to begin with or asphalt. They can have a few yards of crushed concrete shipped in, prepare the site with some sand, put it down and pack it with a compactor, and it performs just as well as a freshly poured or placed concrete slab. Regenerate by design. From the 1860s to the early 1900s, Michigan led the United States in lumber production. And that also it created a wasteland here in the state of Michigan. If you look through our history, so we actually had to do a reforestry and have a bunch of trees planted to actually see what you see now, because Michigan was kind of a wasteland. There was lumber production throughout the state of Michigan, and there still is some up in the UP. but it's very limited. So to regenerate, and we can do that in our communities also. We can plant trees where we've removed buildings to be more sustainable. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions? Kind of blew through that.
Well, thank you. That's all very interesting. I caught your point about homeowners replacing their driveways and having those materials reused rather than going to landfills. How would a homeowner go about causing that to happen? Are most contractors who do driveway replacement going to be aware of those options, or are there particular vendors that specialize in that? How would a
Yeah, there's particular vendors that specialize in that. L&L Concrete is one of them. So if you look at some of the highway construction that goes on, and I know personally we just had it done at our church, we ripped up our asphalt. And so instead of taking that to another site, it's being ground up anyway, so they put it in a truck and just moved it to a different part where we were putting our overflow parking, where we didn't want to pave it yet. And so then that was put down to prep that site so you could still park cars on it. So for the average homeowner, no, there's probably not, because the contractors that they're going to call are typically smaller. But L&L Concrete definitely they're one that recycles concrete, and they're in the Lansing area.
And is that same thing with asphalt?
Yes. You'd have to call around for the asphalt companies. I'm not as familiar with those. It's typically not something I would recommend as asphalt over concrete, just because concrete's easier to produce.
Road construction. When you do a mill and fill,
Right.
they'll mill one portion, and then they try and juggle or schedule it so that they can use it on another portion.
Yeah, it's typically done on bigger jobs. It's hard for homeowners to kind of target those companies. And then in the end, when you reduce all that, you can always buy into community solar programs like Michigan Energy Options is involved in with the Board of Water and Light. And some of the Meridian Township customers are actually Board of Water and Light customers. So those are things that you can do once you've reduced your electrical loads. Yes, sir.
Well, some, talk about porous pavement and so forth. I mean, as sort of new functions, or at least new ways of using resources are considered, is it possible to do those things in a sustainable way? Also, I mean, it seems as though porous pavement is the way people talk about it. It's like a new invention, but of course, people have been doing things like that.
That's an excellent choice. LCC, one of their staff parking lots, is done with that, the porous parking lot. And what it does is it eliminates the runoff, which is what we're always trying to eliminate, because we don't want that runoff to go into our rivers, and it's really hard to contain that. So porous pavement is an excellent way to go.
But can that be made with crushed concrete, things like that? I mean, can it be made with
absolutely.
recycled materials?
And there's also different materials out there that homeowners can implement themselves, that they can place themselves as long as they know how to prep the ground. It doesn't take much to place 4 inches of sand and compact it, and then you can place these blocks that have gaps in them, and then you actually plant grass seed and things like that, so there's no runoff. Everybody's concerned about the walkway along the river, where they should actually be considering the river along the walkway when it comes to runoff, I always hear about the walkways along the river and the river walks and things like that. We should be concerned about the rivers. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what I heard. I was trying to write when you said that Michigan produced the most lumber production in the country between 1860 and 1900.
The early 1900s, yes, sir.
What were you trying to lead me to conclude?
To regenerate by design, to eliminate. So what we're trying to, so when we did that, we had to regenerate what we had taken out. So a lot of times when people are cutting lumber, they say, okay, well, I'm going to heat my house with wood now. Well, you need 50 acres of sustainable woods to be able to maintain just one home, to heat your house every year. So when we cut down all that lumber, we eliminated that carbon sink. So we had to regenerate that somehow. And fortunately, we had the United States government that stepped in and said, okay, we need to help you guys put back in what you've taken out. Yes, you produced the most lumber, but how bad did it hurt the state of Michigan at that time? And fortunately, been able to replenish a lot of that.
Okay, yeah, most of it has grown back, and
Yeah.
there's probably as much or more
Yeah,
in the country now as there was after all the clear cutting.
yeah. I've been in the UP for the last 2 weeks working, and so I would hate to think of being up there without seeing any trees. That would be miserable. It's a beautiful countryside. Did that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Well, no, I guess not. What that's makes it sound like is that foresters should never be involved with cutting trees or harvesting trees.
No, I think we should. They should be. That should happen because it needs to happen. But I think we should look at more sustainable ways of lumber that we produce, like bamboo. Do we need to introduce more bamboo into our construction methods, into the things that we use for building products? Because bamboo grows at a lot faster rate, and it replenishes itself a lot faster. So regeneration and things like that. So there's different techniques that we can use. And also to have the forestry involved in what parcels are we taking down, what parcels are we using for lumber production, and what parcels are we going to leave for a few years.
Okay. We don't grow a lot of bamboo in Michigan, though.
No, we don't. No.
Yeah, it's getting warmer.
Yeah, yeah. Getting a little
It's
warmer.
going to take a little more time.
Susan, it was like you almost had your hand up. Any other questions? Well, thank you again for coming this evening. We
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.